Hello and welcome back to Who Knew, a Doctor Who podcast. I am your host, as always, Josh Carr, and we're back for Series 5. I can't believe we're on Series 5 already. As you know, from Series 1 to 4, I always deliver fantastic guests, and today is no different. And today, Who Knew is going down under for the first time ever, which I'm very, very excited about. We're going all the way across the world to speak to the one, the only, Josh Snares. How are you, Josh?
Hello. G'day. Sorry if I'm going to be Australian.
Come on, you got to play the role.
I don't think I've ever actually said g'day as like an actual thing I'd want to voluntarily say, but I'm going to say it today in honor of the perfect Australian companion, Tegan. So.
Oh, good. I'm very, very glad. It's an absolute honour to have you on the show. I'm very, very excited. I was going to say everyone's favourite WhoTuber, Josh Snares. One thing that I do want to say is you are probably up there as one of the most requested guests on Who Knew ever.
Really?
I get more people asking me to get you on than I do most of the doctors, if I'm honest. People probably don't really bother with the doctors because,
that'd be really hard.
But yeah, people really, 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 really wanted you on Who Knew, and this has been a long time coming. So I've finally delivered. But it's a pleasure having you on.
I'm so flattered.
We'll probably start.
Thank you.
Oh, good. I'm glad that it's flattery to come on here, not too much of a chore. So we're going to start where we always start, which is right at the very start for Doctor Who fans. Because I'm always intrigued, especially when I speak to people from outside of the UK, as to how they got into Doctor Who.
Yeah.
So what was it like for you? What were your early Who experiences, and what made you fall in love with the show?
I feel like I have a weird journey with the show as well, because I first started watching Torchwood. So I didn't watch Doctor Who first, I watched Torchwood. And I watched it because my mum suggested it as well. Because my mum was like, you really enjoy this, because it was her subtle way of dropping hints, being like, come out, we know you're queer. But I did. I loved Torchwood. I became fully obsessed with it, and I had no idea it was a Doctor Who spin-off for ages. It wasn't until I think I watched all of season 1 on repeat, and then I think it was during season 2 where I found out it was actually a spin-off from one of my friends at school who was like, oh, you should watch Doctor Who. And then I watched the Cyberman 2-parter from season 2, and I was like, this show sucks. It is so bad. This is a terrible episode. Why do people like this show? And then somehow I just fell down the hole of Doctor Who, and now I'm like a massive fan of it. So it's weird.
That's a weird intro. We've had a few recently, and I love the weirder ones because I feel like on Who Knew we had a good run of people who were like, yeah, I watched Rose in 2005. It was great, and I love that because that was my way in. But like last time we had Tim Atack from Big Finish, who was Target novels whilst living in Brazil as a child, and now you starting off with Torchwood, which is incredible. So because I feel like when I speak to Americans about sort of getting into Doctor Who, it's very much more of an oddity out there, but it's fairly big in Australia, right? Like it was on TV. Probably not like the biggest thing in the world, but I'd say it's probably, aside from the UK, where it's probably its most popular. Would you agree?
I would agree with that to a certain like in the past I would say 100%. You know, like during the classic series, like we're one of the only countries to really buy most of the stuff from the 60s and air it when it was coming out in the UK. Well, we were like a year behind, but we were still buying everything that came out. So with Doctor Who, like we've had a really good relationship with Australia and the UK. Like Australia co-funded the 5 Doctors, you know, and then when it came back, it was a big thing here as well. But it was never like the UK. It's never like you
Yeah.
guys. It's never been that big. And recent years, no one's watching it. It's like culturally dead. Up until the Matt Smith era, it was big, but after Peter Capaldi came in, people just seemed to not watch it. And I have a lot of theories as to that, but I'm not going to go into that because that's a whole thing. But I do believe that the UK and Australia and Doctor Who have a big relationship together for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's fair to say that it's culturally dipped everywhere, probably post early Matt Smith, especially in the UK. I think was when it sort of started, and then we got like a little peak again for the 50th, and then it dipped again, and it's sort of stayed at a level. I mean, Doctor Who's always going to be culturally important in the UK. I don't think everyone will always talk about it in some way. Sometimes good, sometimes in a bad way. But again, we won't get into that. But yeah, starting with Torchwood is fascinating. So, I mean, what you mentioned, obviously being queer and having like Torchwood is obviously a very queer show and always has been. Do you did you get that connection with Doctor Who as well? Because I feel obviously there's a lot of queer Doctor Who fans out there. I feel like it resonates with a lot of people from those kinds of backgrounds and from neurodivergent backgrounds and they're sort of a lot of the demographics that work. Is that one of the things that pulled you in with Doctor Who, do you think? Or
Oh, for sure. Like, like during high school and that, I didn't really have any queer friends. So like television was really the only place I could go for that. And Torchwood was a huge one. And, because when I was in high school, all those many, many years ago, the queer representation on television was so different. All you had was Glee, and I didn't feel represented by Kurt. I didn't feel represented by that show whatsoever. But Torchwood felt like such like a queer liberation. It felt like over the top horny. It was so stupid and so sex positive. And I don't think maybe the show has aged very well compared to back then, but back then it was revolutionary. And I think you could argue that the idea of a sci-fi show being that queer is really not really being happened again. It's like insane to see like where the entire cast is playing like bisexual or gay or whatever characters. And I think it was really ahead of its time. And so I have a real strong connection with Torchwood in that sense. But then Doctor Who as well, like constantly putting like gay characters in the show as well was also really important as well to me. So I think it was definitely something that stuck me into Doctor Who for sure.
And then obviously the reason why you're here is because you've got an incredible YouTube channel that a lot of people connect with, that revolves around Doctor Who. So where did the whole YouTube thing start? Obviously, you're a fan of Doctor Who, but what made you take that extra step into, I want to create content related to Doctor Who, and I want to explore the show in these various different ways?
Well, like, I've been doing Doctor Who on YouTube since I was in high school, but most of that is hidden on YouTube because I used to do Doctor Who fan films. And they will never see the light of day.
Why?
Because
we want them.
The reason why it was a hard decision to make to take them down because as embarrassing as they are, there's something that I learned a lot from, and I don't want people to ruin it for me. I would hate for it to be like a thing where people are paying me out for these awful fan films, and ruin the experience. Because look, they're not good. They're not good, but I had a lot of fun making them, and I definitely wouldn't be where I am now if I didn't learn all of that stuff early on. So they're an important part of my life, and I don't want them to be turned into something that's a laughing, like a joke, But but yeah, transitioning to doing like Doctor Who documentary type stuff, it was really with like the missing episodes, and I kind of knew that I wanted to do this missing episodes documentary and make this big thing. And I'd been working in marketing for a while, so I knew how to market it at that point, and I knew that there wasn't really anything like that on YouTube at the time. Like YouTube, I like these like documentaries on YouTube has been like a really big thing in other fandoms and just in general. Like I was very much inspired by Nightmare Expo, who does like horror documentaries and stuff like that. And they were so stylistic. And I was like, oh, I would like to do that. But I was like, no one's doing it for Doctor Who. Whereas, now there's lots of people doing what I'm doing. But when I was doing it, there was no one. It was really just me. And I knew that it was something that was missing in the market or whatever. And I wanted to do it my way. Obviously, I've learned a lot since then. But yeah, that's kind of how it started.
Yeah. I love the documentary format, and I love the way that you utilize it, because your videos are so well made. Like I said, I've obviously, in preparation for the pod, I watch your content all the time anyway, but I've done an extra little binge and gone back to some of my old favourites, and just the quality is insane, and the depth, like with it's sort of my favourite form of like YouTube video, especially with regards to Doctor Who, is sort of the longer form documentary style. Like between you and Clever Dick Films, I know Adam Martin does some stuff as well. They're the ones that I really connect to, because I love just sticking them on while I'm doing stuff around the house, and it can be like a 2 hour long thing. The production value is insane. And it's only increasing with the TV, by the way. That I was obsessed with that. The new TV is the coolest thing. If anyone hasn't seen it, Josh has bought a 1960s TV and had it sort of renovated so that it works. And really, you're watching cool. your Doctor Who Blu-rays on it. And I want it. I want it. And
oh yeah, it was totally worth it. Oh, it's so cool.
My girlfriend was looking at me watching it the other day, and she's like, "No, you are not. No, don't. You are not doing this, because what will happen is you'll buy a 60s TV, you'll pull all the electrics out, and then it'll just get left somewhere in the house. Because you'll never finish it." But yeah, I mean, like I said, the content is amazing, and the missing episode stuff is what really captures me, because I think it's an insane story. And there's so many insane stories interlinked with it. I was watching your missing episodes omnibus. I think I've heard the name Ian Levine more times than I'd like today. But yeah, I was watching that, and all I was thinking while watching it was, there are films you could make. There are feature films you could make about the stories about missing episodes. What is that? What drew you to missing episodes? Is just the insane stories. How did you sort of get yourself down that Doctor Who rabbit hole? Because it seems like one that you haven't really left. Because it is a mad story. But what drew you in first and foremost?
I remember my first ever realization that there were missing episodes, and it was on the Series 5 Blu-ray set or DVD set, probably DVD at that time. And there was a making of Victory of the Daleks, and they mentioned how they were referencing Power of the Daleks, and they mentioned how it was missing. And I was like, oh. And I think during that time was where like my hyperfixation on Doctor Who really kicked in. So it was when I started going back and looking at it, and ever since then, it was kind of like going mad over it. And then we had the returns in 2011, which was Underwater Menace and Galaxy 4. There was 2 episodes from those. And that just kind of snowballed from there. And then, of course, Web of Fear and Enemy of the World. That was insane. It was a huge year. And it kind of just started there. And then the stories on the missing episodes, like, I think I preface in like the beginning of so many of my videos, like the story behind the missing episodes is sometimes better than the actual stories themselves.
Oh, 100%. Like 100%.
It's just insane. Like there's a trailer out at the moment for like a Tetris movie, and I'm like, this is kind of like what you could do with Doctor Who, because it's just insane.
It is
insane.
I saw that trailer the other day, and I was like, if someone did this, but it's like Taron Egerton playing Ian Levine, which is not something the world needs, I don't think. But yeah, I mean, there are some mental stories, and also I feel like because all of the stories are so differing from person to person. Like, there's so many unreliable narrators involved in the missing episodes. I feel like if you wanted to write a story, you could just write whatever you wanted. You could write car chases and explosions, and you could just write it off as, oh yeah, well, like, John Dudley from Hull said that this is what happened. This is what he saw when he went to the BBC archives. So yeah, I'm fascinated by it. I think it's one of the bits of Doctor Who that when you mention it to people who aren't Doctor Who fans as well, it sort of piques their interest. Like I've had friends at work where I mention like, oh, they're doing an animation of a missing episode, and they're like, what the? But why are there episodes missing? Where has your show gone? But yeah, I mean, and I say there's a great series on YouTube by a YouTuber called Josh Snares that will explain everything you need to know. So do you think there's more out there? That's my question. Do you think there's more to be found, or do you think if there were that we'd have found them by now? Do you think we've had a lot?
I know there are missing episodes out there. That is without a fact. There's no doubt there are missing episodes out there. But the problem is they're in private collections. And I was talking about this recently with a friend because we were trying to, like, they just couldn't understand why wouldn't they give it back. And the problem is, as a Doctor Who fan, we care about the episodes themselves, what's on them. It's so important to us that we want to watch the Daleks Master Plan. Whereas, let's say, if I'm a private collector and I had the only copy of the 10th Planet episode 4, it doesn't matter what's on it. It's the fact that I have this and that it's culturally important, and the fact that no one else has it. The actual tin it's in, the actual physical film reel, is more valuable to them than what's actually on it. So you got two very conflicting ideologies, and there's no amount of money that'll convince this person to hand it over. This is very much something that they want, something that's just as important as this in return. And even then, they might have and you know, because like the thing is, like, the people who own these probably aren't Doctor Who fans. And if they were, there's a good chance maybe they watched a few episodes when they were kids. And they were like, this is important to me because it reminds me of my childhood. And that's it. They don't care about giving it back to Doctor Who fans. It's not some giving back to the community thing. That doesn't interest them because it doesn't have that sense of value to them. So, like, the relationship between a private collector and a Doctor Who fan is something that shouldn't really be a thing because it's so foreign. It's completely different. So, and the sad thing is, there's two ways this can get back to us. Either one, they die, and somehow it's handed to someone who is happy to either give it back or they add it to their private collection, then we wait for them to die. So that's just an endless loop of it handing to someone else, to someone else, to someone else, and it still never gets back to us as the film reel deteriorates. And every year it's getting worse and worse, and we don't know what conditions they're being held in. Or the other option is they die and their family members have no idea the worth of it, and they have two options. Either one, they sell it to some random person who either knows what it's worth or just happens to be in the right place and gives it back, and we're like, yippee, or they throw it in the bin. Yeah. The likelihood of us getting it back every single time is so slim. And the sad thing is we have to have faith in people like Paul Vanez's who, you know, these are people who are investigating this. These are people who know the names. And we have to hope that they're doing everything they can to get stuff back. And who knows if they're training other people to do the same, or maybe when they retire or they give up, the whole thing goes dead. Who knows? Mm-hmm. So I think it's a very tricky and awful situation where most of the time we don't end up happy. But we can hope and we can dream, and hopefully we get something back.
Yeah. I mean, based on, obviously, on your research, because I think you're probably, with the amount of research you've done, you're probably a bit of an authority on the subject. Which episodes do you think are, what's top likelihood of this is most likely out there somewhere and could exist, and what is, if this exists somewhere, then it is an absolute miracle of humanity.
Yeah.
What do you think is the upper end of the scale? What are we most likely to see and least likely to see in the future, do you think?
I'm going to do the fun answer first, and then I'll give the sad answer later. The fun answer is the fact that we don't have anything of Marco Polo is baffling. They made so many copies of this. It's probably one of the most copied episodes of Doctor Who of all time. It went everywhere, but somehow it's in no one's archive. No one's got it, which is so weird. Like, you know, like this is sold to like Canada, Australia. I think it was even sent to Germany as test prints, but then they were like, we don't want to screen it here. You know, like, that's one of the stories. I'm like, how do we have nothing? It's so weird. But maybe because it's just so old. It's just so early on in Doctor Who's career.
Yeah.
And then the stuff that's harder to get is the later Hartnell. Because by that point, they stopped selling it. Because they would sell Doctor Who in batches. So they would sell like, I'm going to basically say like season 1, season 2, season 3, even though it wasn't exactly that. But we're going to go with that for simplicity. But so season 1, let's say season 1 was sold a lot. They would sell that batch to lots of people. Season 2, a little bit less. Season 3, not many. But then you got stuff like, I think when we come, like stuff I think we've got no chance is The Feast of Stephen. And I say that because they never made a copy of it, as far as we know. Because they only made a copy, when
that's
they sold
the saddest one, I think. I think that's the one where everyone just wants to see him say, have Merry Christmas to all of you at home. Everyone wants to see that.
Because when the Daleks Master Plan was sold over internationally, it was only ever sold to Australia, and they didn't sell Feast of Stephen because it wouldn't have lined up with the dates. So, but Australia didn't screen the Daleks Master Plan, but we did buy it, so we did have a copy. But the fact that there was only ever one copy of the Daleks Master Plan ever made, and we have 3 surviving episodes from it, like that doesn't make any sense. And then Marco Polo, we have like 7 or 8 copies, and not one episode survives. So when we're going for like likelihood, it's like you can't even guess it really. But like there are some episodes that I think personally are probably out there. I think 10th Planet 4 is out there. I think Web of Fear 3 is out there. I have a feeling that Fury from the Deep episode 6 is out there because we had like a film can, but I think it's probably junked. Because that's the thing, like these film reels would get switched between film cans and then they would end up in places they're not supposed to be. So they could just be sitting in an archive somewhere mislabeled. Yeah. Or they could be junked. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, 10th Planet 4, if you have a private collector out there that's done a bit of research, that would be one that you think would be insanely valuable. Because with it being the first regeneration and stuff like that, that's probably one of the more valuable in terms of like marketability in the future. If you ever did want to sell it, like you could make a small fortune on that, I imagine. But yeah, I mean, it's such a shame, isn't it? I mean, it's great that we get the animations and reconstructions from fans and stuff like that is amazing, and obviously technology is catching up so that even though animation is an insanely long and arduous process, for a fan to sit through, obviously never mind people who get paid for it as well, but it's good that technology is sort of getting to a point where the technology is getting more readily available for people to be able to sort of have a crack at it in their own time and sort of fill in the gaps. Because Doctor Who fans will always do that. We'll always do anything we can to fill the gaps. Speaking of animation, because this is a neat segue. One thing that I wanted to talk to you about was your recent dives into the world of animation, which are nothing short of incredible.
Oh, thank you.
You don't mind me saying. Because I recently purchased, a while back, I purchased Out of Time 1, because it was on sale by Big Finish over Christmas. So I bought it then, and I thought, I'm going to save it so I can sit and I'll watch it with Josh's animation.
Yeah.
And I did it. I did it this week, and it's so good. So good. And the animation, I mean, aside from me being really slow trying to time them so that the mouths match up.
Yeah.
Because obviously you've got to play it on your own device
Yeah.
and watch it on YouTube. It was honestly so fun to watch, because you captured, I mean, you captured two of the most effervescent Doctors in 4 and 10 to perfection in animation. What was that like to make? I imagine long and arduous, as I said before, but yeah, what was it like for you? What were your experiences animating that?
Yeah, like the Out of Time project was kind of like, I still don't even remember where it started. I don't remember how I started going into it because it was so long ago. Because it took me like 2 years to really do it, but I was like on and off. I wasn't working constantly for 2 years, but it was such a big project because I'd done like reconstructions before, like telesnap type style stuff, but I hadn't done something that was like fully 2D animation. But I knew the idea came around because Adobe released a program called Character Animator, and it was really basically it like uses like webcam to like track your face, and so you could animate it in that sense, and then you can drag stuff and all that type of stuff. So I liked the fact how user friendly it was, and yeah, it was kind of like a big project. So Lucy Crew did all the character designs. I commissioned her to do that, and I just loved her designs. I thought they were really cool, and yeah, it was just this big, huge project. Just storyboarding the whole thing and then just putting it together. But yeah, I even just summarize it really fast. I can't even because it was just a huge thing.
The character designs are so good, because I love when Doctor Who animations don't sort of go for like exact copies and like complete likenesses, because I feel like then you're sort of straying too far into uncanny valley. So I like seeing different like art styles and different impressions of things in animations when it comes to Doctor Who, and they're really, really fun. Can I just say as well, when I said that 10 and 4 are sort of the two very energetic Doctors, but also they have the most energetic hair of any Doctors, surely. And there was this one scene in particular where I was watching it, and my eyes were just on the hair of both of them, just bouncing. I was like, you've got the movement of the fourth Doctor's hair spot on. And I have no idea how you did it.
It was like actually in the program, it was like a dangle option. I was like, yeah, who cares? I'm just going to do it. Like my initial test, like the 10th Doctor's like, was like falling off completely. And I was like, maybe I'll fix that a little bit. But yeah, I thought it would be fun. Just add a bit of extra life to it.
Do you think that's you spent for animations now? Is that something that you wouldn't want to do again? Or have you got other things lined up that you'd want to do in animation for?
Well, originally I was going to do The Brink of Death, which was the 6th Doctor's regeneration story. Just the final episode. I wasn't going to do the other three.
I remember you tweeting a couple of... I think I remember you tweeting a couple of things and a couple of screenshots here and there a while ago about with the 6th Doctor story. So you were just going to do the final part of Brink of Death.
Yeah, I was going to do that. And I commissioned Lucy to do the character designs, but she was just too busy. It's funny, like, it was literally like a month ago, she got back to me. It was like, I think like 10 months later, and I was like, look, let's just cancel it. I think it's done. Because I've got other projects on now, and she's got other stuff on.
Yeah.
So I just paid her for what she'd already done and just said, that's enough. But yeah, it was just, it just wasn't happening this time. I felt like it was like... I think if like I had the character stuff back then, I probably would have done it. But it just, I think it's just because it took so long, I just kind of lost momentum. And I've put money into different projects this year, so this one's on the back burner. I don't think I'm going to come back to it. I think I'm kind of like, I'm happy with what I've done. Not ever to say never. Like I might come back to do an animation project in the future, but it's not something that's on my list at the moment.
Yeah, and it's not it's not like you're the only person who'd be doing them, because I know you did a video recently, which I had to rewatch, because the first time I watched it I was very drunk and I was like, this is an incredible video. I was so drunk. I got in from a night out and was like, Josh Snares has posted a new video. I've got to watch it now. So not my best idea, but then I watched it sober and it was still incredible. So wonderful. But yeah, I know you did a video about some upcoming and some current fan animation projects, and there's lots out there. There's a lot of great animators and fan animations out there to explore. So like I said, I hope that other people continue to fill the gaps and create some fun stuff from Big Finish. That was an interesting choice, I think, from you, because obviously if someone said to me, Josh Snares is making an animated Doctor Who episode, I'd go, okay, which one of the missing episodes is it? But you decided to go down a different route. What made you pick Out of Time? Was it did something jump out to you and you thought, I need to see this in animation?
There was a few reasons why, actually. Now you've jogged my memory. I think the reason why I chose a Big Finish was because at that time when I was first starting, there was the potential that the BBC were going to animate every single missing episode of Doctor Who. So in my head, I was like, well, what would they never animate so I don't waste my time? And I was like, they're never going to animate Out of Time. I know they're not going to animate a Big Finish audio. And that's probably a never say never type of thing, maybe down the track. But Big Finish don't have the license to do videos. They don't have the license to do animations. That's a different thing. Mm-hmm. So it's the same reason why they don't release their scripts, because they can't be falling under publishing. Which is sad, because I've talked about this a lot, because I think it's pretty inaccessible that you can't listen to people who are like deaf. They can't experience Big Finish audios legally because there's no scripts that they can get, which is sad. And I hope that they will be able to renegotiate that under some type of different contract, because I don't think it would count as publishing if it's a transcript. But in the sense that it should be for people who are deaf or hard of hearing. Yeah, it's just legal stuff. Because when I was doing Out of Time, I did think about, maybe should I reach out to Big Finish and just say, hey, do you want it as a free digital download if people have bought the release? But I thought there's two ways. Either they say, don't ever post this or we will sue you, or like they're just going to say no. So I never offered it. But I have got, Nick Briggs did retweet it on Twitter and he directed it. So I thought that was very kind.
That's nice.
And I recently got told that Matt Fitton, who wrote it, said he watched it and liked it too, which is very, very flattering. So I think I've got the blessing at the moment.
Oh, that's
and I was
really
in Doctor
nice.
Who magazine as well. So,
Oh,
so I'm okay.
That's very
I'm not
cool.
getting sued.
Yeah, that's good. That's very, very good, because I think it's nice that it gets that sort of reaction, because if anything, it's encouraging people to buy Out of Time. The way you released it was really it was done with the utmost respect to Big Finish. You weren't trying to basically pirate it, which is great.
Yeah. If I released the audio, then yes, I would have definitely.
You would have got sued. Yeah, Nick Briggs would have flown to Australia and would have been knocking on your door. Yeah. This is a recurring theme on the podcast. I hope this is probably the reason why Nick Briggs will never come on Who Knew, because every time we mention something happening with Big Finish, I make out that he's got some kind of Men in Black organisation where he's sending people to your house in the middle of the night.
I like that idea.
Sorry, Nick. I like it. I like it too. Apologies, Nick. Apologies for that. Please don't send the men round. But before we go to a break, you mentioned in there that there's a couple of other projects that you're working on at the moment. And here is Josh attempting to tease information out of another Josh. Is there anything that you're working on that you can tell us about? Anything that you can tease? Anything that you can drop little hints about?
Yeah, as this podcast is coming out, my first trailer for The Might of the Daleks should be coming out, which I'm very excited about. It's my big project this year. It's probably one of my most ambitious projects.
I set you up for that.
You did it.
I've seen the trailer. It's really good. It's really good.
You have no choice but to ally with the Daleks.
I mean, everyone who's listening, but at this point, will have seen it. I'm
so excited.
very, 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 very excited for it.
Yeah, it's a co-production between me and my mate Aaron Vanderclay, who's this incredible filmmaker in Perth. So like I flew over the way to Perth. It's this massive project, and it's like really just this great slice of 1960s Doctor Who goodness. It's got everything. It's got death. It's got destruction. It's got the Daleks. It's really something special. I felt like I was traveling back in time to the 1960s. I felt like I was in Lime Grove Studios directing the Daleks. It was really like a dream come true. And I think people are really going to lose their minds over this. It feels so authentic. It feels really accurate to the era, but it's got a bit of a Twilight Zone feel. It's got a bit of everything. So I think if you're a fan of 60s Dalek stories, you're going to love this.
I am insanely excited for this. The trailer it sort of set it up to me to be one of the most exciting Doctor Who projects out there at the minute. So I cannot wait to see more of Might of the Daleks. I will drop a link down below in the description to the trailer. But I imagine as you're seeing this, you've probably all watched it already. So, because I'll probably have been screaming about it on Twitter. So, very, very excited for that. And I can't wait to see that and whatever else you do in the future. So, we're going to go to a little break. We're going to have a little bitty break. And when we come back, we've got some features to attend to. Namely, first of all, the DVD collection. So go put the kettle on, go feed your cat, whatever jobs you've got to do, and we'll see you back here in a minute. So have a good break. Hello and welcome back to Who Knew, a Doctor Who podcast. I am still your host, Josh Carr, and I'm still here with Josh Snares.
Allegedly.
The Josh thing's... Allegedly, yeah. The Josh thing's getting confusing. I can't remember which Josh I am most of the time anyway. I've never had another Josh on, so it's
Really?
You know, Josh supremacy. Never, no.
There's so many Joshes.
I mean, we are the only Joshes in the Doctor Who community that
are we?
matter.
That's fair. I'll take that. That matter. Yeah. Sorry 100%. To every other Josh.
Yeah, sorry guys. Sorry.
I would like to apologise to the Josh community.
So we've got some features. I love the features, and it's been a while. So let's head on over to the one, the only. You can see it behind me. You can see it. That was the wrong hand. I always get confused. This one. The DVD collection.
By the power of Grayskull.
The Unicorn and the Wasp or Love and Monsters?
Which one do you think I'll prefer?
No, I mean, which one do you want to watch first?
You are pulling my leg.
So, for any new listeners, the DVD collection is a collection of quintessential Doctor Who stories that are submitted by my wonderful guests as something that means a little bit to them. Maybe their favourite episode, maybe their first episode, maybe just an episode that they love talking about. There's been some good, there's been some bad, but that's the beauty of the Corridor of Fame. Not the Corridor of Fame, the DVD collection. I get my features in a twist. That's the beauty of the DVD collection, is any story can be worthy. So, Josh, it is time to find out what you would like to submit to the DVD collection. Hit me with it.
I'm choosing the greatest episode of Doctor Who of all time, The Haunts of Nimon.
The facts. Straight facts.
Yeah. It's
no one can argue
perfection. No, it's just good Doctor Who. I feel like the Halls of Daimon, I will never be able to describe why I love it so much. I think it's just because it's everything. It's just camp. Romana's the lead. Tom Baker's off in the TARDIS just pissing about. And Soldeed is the most dramatic and over-the-top performance of all time. But like...
I love Soldeed. I thought
so
I did know that you were going to pick the Horns of Nymon in advance. I'll use that as a disclaimer. And I've set aside a good 45 minutes for Soldeed chat. So we can run away to your heart's content. But yeah, I mean it's a mad episode. It's a mad story, isn't it?
For sure.
I mean, what are your defining moments from the Horns of Nymon, do you think?
I think there's so much good stuff in there. It's hard to pinpoint one moment, but everyone's going to go back to that final confrontation between Romana and Soldeed. But like, I think what I love about it is that Lala Ward is playing the Doctor in this one. So she's getting to do the whole thing herself, even the final confrontation. Like, Tom Baker doesn't even show up. Like, why is he even here? Who cares? We just want Romana. It's brilliant. And like that entire scene, I pretty much know it off by heart. It's ingrained in my mind. But like the performances of it, they're so over the top. But like, if you read the script, how else do you perform it? How do you say stuff like "My dreams of conquest"? You've brought this calamity beyond before me, and you meddlesome hussy. Like, how are you supposed to say "you meddlesome hussy" in the most like subtle and filmic approach?
You can't play that straight, can you?
No, you
cannot
can't.
play it straight. You can't play "you meddlesome hussy." What a line! What a line!
So good. So good.
Yeah, no, that is a good point. I mean, I've not watched it for a while. I've probably not watched it since lockdown. And that was definitely a fever dream. But I mean, it is interesting. It sort of does the whole like Clara Who thing that we got in Series 8.
Yeah.
Like 40 years earlier, doesn't it? Because Romana really does take the lead in this one.
For sure.
Which is fun. I mean, it's sort of like Romana's version of Sarah Jane Adventures, where she gets to just run off and be the hero for a bit.
She even has her own sonic screwdriver. Yeah. Like, she's the Doctor in that one. It's brilliant. Exactly. I love it.
Exactly. I love it. And the Nymon. What can you say about the Nymon? What a design.
What can't you say?
How many have you seen today? How many Nymon, Josh Snares,
I think I've seen 3.
I've seen 1. So you've beaten.
Well, he said he was the only one, the last survivor of his race.
Yeah, and then I'm sure they pop up in a Big Finish audio.
Yeah, they do.
They do. I'm sure it's.
I think it's like a Paul McGann. Yeah, it's like a 2-parter.
100%. Yeah, definitely. I can't remember which one at the minute. I think it's.
I haven't listened to it.
Tiny one. But I mean, what a pick for the first one of the series. You've come in with a barnstormer.
We're starting high.
We have started. I mean, no one can beat this. It's the Horns of Nymon. I mean, it's one of those stories that there are some that get submitted to the DVD collection where I think, I can't get 5 minutes of conversation about this episode because there is nothing to talk about. I don't think anyone will ever run out of things to say about the Horns of Nymon. It's one of those stories.
Like, we haven't even mentioned the ripping pants.
No.
Do you remember that bit where there's like...
I don't remember.
He's like one of the guards.
What happens?
And then the Nymon like attacks him and he falls over and his pants rip open. It's so bad.
What?
It's like, just... I got every level.
I need to rewatch this.
You need to see it. It's iconic. Like, it just makes his death even more horrible and embarrassing. It's just so bad. It's so good.
Do you think that's probably the most humiliating death in all of Doctor Who? Is
for sure. It's up there. It's up
as there. You die at the hands of the Nymon of all things. Your pants rip.
So bad.
What
I've seen it so many times, and it never fails to make me laugh.
It. I've only ever watched it the once. This is the thing. I did one classic Who rewatch. And now this is my first time where I'm sort of jumping back into classic, and I'm now doing a full rewatch again. I'm starting from the beginning. So I'm sure at some point in like 8 months, I'll hit the Horns of Naimon, and I will be on the lookout for ripped pants.
It's either episode 2 or
I
3.
can't wait. 2 or 3. I will remember. I'm going to write it.
so.
I'm going to write it down.
Yeah.
2 or 3. Ripped pants.
Yeah.
Eyes peeled. But thank you for that. I'm so happy that there's someone's put the Horns of Naimon in. Great pick, wonderful pick, and it's there forever.
Yeah, thank God.
You meddlesome hussies. I love it. I love it. So that was the DVD collection. Join us again next week for more fun and frolics there. We are now going to go over to a burning hell pit owned by someone who is, I think, probably humanity's answer to Soldeed at the moment.
Yeah.
I
think that's insulting to Soldeed. I think he was misunderstood in comparison.
It is. We're going to go over and see what the folks have to say on bloody Twitter.
For God's sake! Bloody Twitter!
Boo.
Boo. So, thank you, listeners, for sending in all of your wonderful questions. We'll get through as many as we can. We've had some fun ones. We've had some good ones in. First one is from dear friend of the show, Jack, from an Awful Lot of Running podcast, at @an_awful_Jack on Twitter. Jack has said, a wonderful guest with an amazing portfolio of work we all rightly adore. Will this multi-Josh episode descend into the next multi-Josh fight? No, as you can see, we've united against all other Joshes. We've betrayed our kind. And we've formed a Josh alliance. Question for us both. This is exciting. I don't usually get questions. It's usually just you lot. Question for you both. What missing episode would you plan a heist around to steal from a selfish collector? And who joins you, Ocean's 11 style team? So I'm gonna throw this over to you first.
Okay.
Assemble your team and then give me your episode and sort of how you're gonna go about this.
I would want to save pretty much any missing episode. To risk my life, I'd probably skip a few. Like, I'm not going to risk my life for the Crusade. No offense to the people who love the Crusade. People love the Crusade, but it's not for me.
I'm halfway through it at the moment, and I'm struggling. I don't know. I have no idea of the fan consensus on the Crusade, but people really love it. Like,
well, I just watched the Web
I'm
Planet.
just like, this is.
I just watched the Web Planet, and then which was a real struggle for me. I'm not a fan of that story. It's my third time watching it now. And then I watched the first episode of The Crusade. I'm like, you know what? This is great because in comparison, I think it's
that's
interesting.
probably why. I think
it's
because people are watching it straight after the Web Planet.
Yeah.
And it's that whiplash.
Yeah.
That I think you could watch anything after the Web Planet and it would look good.
I think the dialogue is really good in The Crusade. But like, I'm not a huge. Like, I'm not like clamoring to get an episode back with blackface in it. You know, like it's not like on my top list. Like, oh, I really want to see this. Yeah, but like the dialogue, I think the script is really good. I think it's well written. It's just a bit of a miss on that part. But yeah, if I was to my team, who's really tough? I don't know who's tough. Who's really sneaky? I have no idea who I would get to come along with me. I don't know, because Doctor Who fans like me are notoriously clumsy, unfit, and do you know anyone who could possibly do it? Because I'm very unfit. I can barely walk up the stairs.
No, we're all not. I mean, I think if we all had better physical abilities, we'd probably be doing something else with our time, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not doing it. I would sort of be like man in the chair. I'll send other people out to do it, but I'm not I'll do the intel, and I'll just
Maybe
get a crack team of people.
Yeah, maybe we'll get
I'd
some
just get
non-Doctor
you.
Who fans.
You
and me could be
you
our
are
research.
probably the person with the most knowledge.
I'll be
My
the research
would
team.
be ringing you. Yeah, that would be I'd be the man in the chair, and they'd go, Josh, we need all the intel, and then I'd ring you and go, Josh, I need all your intel. So that
we're going to need code names.
But yeah, assembling. we're definitely Snares and Carr. We've definitely hit a bit of a brick wall on a team here. If I was going to pick one to go and hunt for, Daleks Master Plan is probably the one that I'd go high sting for.
Yeah, that's top of the top.
But yeah, I mean, sorry if we've let you down there, Jack.
Sorry, Jack.
Yeah, sorry. But I mean, if anyone has any ideas for crack teams that they would want to go hunting for missing episodes, then please leave a comment below, and I would love to hear them. And I hope we're involved. I hope you get the Joshes involved.
Yes, please.
Next question is from Philip Hawkins. Obviously a wonderful YouTuber. At Culture Filter with a PH on Twitter. Phil has said, pitch us a brand new Australian companion. What era are they from? What would their personality be? And what would be their story arc? I'm leaving this one to you, fully, as
I would say
the Australian correspondent at the moment.
I would say they're from this era. They look exactly like me. Their name is Josh, and it's played by me. And then I get to hang out with Shirigawa all the time, and that would be a dream come true.
That would be wonderful.
But I love Tegan, and I'm happy with my singular Australian companion. But I don't feel the need to be represented as an Australian, because I don't feel like I have that. I'm not a nationalist. I don't have some tie to my country. I think, if anything, I think maybe like an Indigenous Australian companion would be really interesting, because there's nothing like that in Doctor Who. The only time it's ever really happened was an attempt. I think it was a good-hearted attempt in Fort Doomsday, and they had Indigenous Australians in it. But I think they had good intentions, but they hired Indian actors instead, which is no. And then Tegan speaks Aboriginal, but you can't speak Aboriginal. There's hundreds of languages. But I think they were trying, but they just missed. So I would
gold star for effort, but
they tried.
Execution
but
was not there.
They missed. No. But yeah, I think that's something in general I think needs to be worked on. I feel like Australia is really far behind in Indigenous Australian representation on screen. So if they were going to do it, I would love something like that, and with someone on the team making sure they're doing the right thing this time and not just guessing.
Yes, definitely.
But yeah.
So the options are Indigenous Australian, you,
or me,
or no one.
A white person.
That's it. Or you.
They got two options.
That's it. They are the only options. They are spoilt for choice there. We have another question. We have a question from Dayton Felt. Great name. What do you think about the idea of recreating old serials that are missing, like what the students did for Mission to the Unknown? What are your thoughts on shot-for-shot recreations of missing episodes?
I think Mission to the Unknown was incredible, and I think it was such a great production, not only because of the incredibly talented team behind it, Andrew Ireland did an amazing job, and so the entire cast and crew, it's incredible. But I think the reason why Mission to the Unknown works so well is because the Doctor's not in it. That's purely the thing. I think as soon as you start recasting the Doctor, it'll feel like a fan film. Which is very, very specifically why in Might of the Daleks, the Doctor doesn't turn up. because as soon as the Doctor turns up, it becomes silly and it can become amateurish. So I think as much as I enjoy David Bradley's performance as the Doctor as much as I can, he's nothing like William Hartnell. He's not William Hartnell, and there's no one out there who will be able to even scratch his performance, who can bring the depth, who can bring the anger and the love and the comedic timing. I think it's gotten to the point now where it feels almost disrespectful, where it feels like they're posting David Bradley instead of William Hartnell. And this show wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be here talking about it if it wasn't for William Hartnell. William Hartnell is such an important part of the show, and I don't think just recasting him is something that can be easily done. And I wouldn't be very happy if they decided to remount it instead of doing an animation, because to me, those actors are just as important as their characters, and it would feel like a different show to me. I would enjoy it for what it is. I'd be like, this is great, but it's not the same. I think an animation is more respectful, and I think it honors the original more. I think finding that line is really, really difficult, and I think we're getting closer and closer in the media landscape of removing the actor from the character. And it's concerning because we're getting stuff like these deep fakes and that, which sound fun in the moment, but where's the line? You know, these people have died, and we're bringing them back to dance as a corporate product.
It feels disrespectful, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I like to think that if they are ever going to try and go along those lines, if they are going to do it, you'd rather see a David Bradley or someone else like trying to honour the actor by doing a similar performance, whether they nail it or not, rather than a computer-generated version like we've seen in sort of Star Wars and Marvel. How do you feel? Because I feel like there's a middle ground here, which is Big Finish, and how Big Finish tackle recastings. Because obviously it's a different landscape because you're not recreating someone's physical appearance, and you're not casting an actor who has to look like that person, and they're not playing them on screen. It's a vocal performance. But I mean, my opinion is that I like what a lot of Big Finish have done, because I feel like they've always prioritised the character. They're using images of the original actors, not the new actors, to promote it. I think they've gone about it in a very respectful way, and I think they're sort of the benchmark for, if you are going to do this kind of thing, how to do it in the most respectful way possible. What do you think? I mean, what are your thoughts on the way that Big Finish tackle it?
I'm in two minds with it. I admire the fact that they try and go for family members first, and they'll reach out and be like, hey, do you want to play your mother's role and stuff like that? And I think that's really nice, and it feels honoring, and it feels like they're respecting the actor as well as the character in the moment. So I think they're great. I think they have a lot of actors who because the problem is when it's audio, because as a director, you're trying to cast someone who sounds like them but can also give a performance, because there's a lot of people who can do impersonations but they can't act. So, like, they have to find that middle ground, and sometimes I feel like they try and find a middle ground, they just sound nothing like them. They're doing a good performance, but they sound nothing like them. And then you got some people who sound exactly like them and they're incredible. Like, who does the Brigadier? What's his name? Oh god.
John Culshaw.
John Culshaw, yeah. Incredible actor, incredible performance. He sounds exactly like them. And he's also a really good actor as well. So it's perfect. It just makes sense. But there are some of them which I'm a bit like, I don't think that sounds like them at all. And that's really hard when it's just audio, because you're like, I don't know who's talking. I'm not going to name names.
I mean, I think it's harsh when, because I feel like a lot of the judgment towards some of the people, when there are like new people who pop up playing these characters. Just like a recent example that comes to mind is Stephen Noonan, who is the first Doctor. I feel like a lot of the because I did see some people say this doesn't really sound that much like the First Doctor, which is fair. You know, it's objective and however you feel about it. But I feel like a lot of the criticism came from on the back of the trailer, which is fine, and you know, it's something that Big Finish have put out to promote, and you're welcome to comment on it. That's fine. But what I found when I listened to it was, because Big Finish are so good at capturing the vibe of an era, then the voice sort of morphs in my own head more into a William Hartnell, just because I feel like I'm listening, or I feel like I'm watching a 60s episode, because they nail everything else about it. The tone and the other performances all sound like I could imagine an actor in the 1960s getting cast and playing this role on TV. Yeah. And the dialogue sounds like a 60s script. Next question is from Reese Dell at Reese Dell with a 5 and a 3. You decide where they go. Being a big First Doctor fan, which non-First Doctor story do you think would be perfect to put Hartnell and co in? So it's sort of left it for you to decide on a TARDIS team there. But what TARDIS team of Hartnell's do you think would fit into another non-Hartnell story quite well?
As like a Doctor and Companion team up.
Yeah. And
I would love
if you can take the Doctor and Companion and replace him with Hartnell.
I would love the First Doctor and Donna. I think that'd be just ridiculous. Yeah. Or if you chuck the First Doctor with replacing Peter Davison and like having the First Doctor interact with Tegan and Nyssa and Adric, because I feel like their dynamic is very similar, where it's all like, we're fighting because we don't want to be here. Very similar to like Ian and Barbara. So I think those would work really well. It would feel natural. But I don't know about a particular story where I feel like Bill would shine. But yeah, I like the idea of those team ups. So I half answered your question.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think some of the early Chibnall era, because I think it sort of tried to go back to that Hartnell vibe a little bit. I think there's a couple of stories in there that could work. I could see Hartnell in a...
What was episode 2 of season 11? What was that? Because that was basically
Ghost
the Keys of Marinus. Ghost Monument. I can see Bill on that one.
It basically was, yeah. It was the Keys of Marinus compressed. I mean, I could see the First Doctor in a Saranga conundrum. Well, I don't know if I could see the First Doctor in the Pating, though. That's probably the only thing. But I mean, I'd pay to see it. I would pay. I mean, in terms of team ups, one that's, because I know that obviously when we're recording this, last week Big Finish announced a lot of guest stars for their 60th anniversary audio, and the prospect of the First Doctor and Jackie Tyler meeting.
I knew you were going to say that. Oh my god, my mind was going there too.
The idea that could happen has filled me with so much excitement that I just think, because I tweeted out, I think Jackie Tyler like the idea of Jackie Tyler meeting anyone and any Doctor in the whole of the Doctor Who universe is hilarious. Jackie and the Paternoster gang, that would be hilarious. It would be chaotic, fun, and we might get 9 and 10 and Jackie all in a room together. That's what I need. I need all of this stuff. I love big fan wanky stories like that. They're all so silly. We'll go for the last question. The last question from Bloody Twitter, which is from Arlo Macmillan at the real Arlo Who on Twitter. I think you've got some biases here for this question, but you may surprise us. Which is better, Australia or New Zealand?
Well, I've never actually been to New Zealand, so I feel like I can't answer that. But
You can't.
I literally, I'm not someone who has like any pride of being Australian. I'm happy that I live here and I love, because my friends and family live here. But I do not have pride in our country's history. You know, this is a country that has done horrible, horrible things. So I'm not someone who's like, I love Australia. Like, I don't. I see the world as one big place. And, you know, yeah. So I don't feel like I have any happy, I love Australia moments, and you're not really going to get that from me. So I'm sure New Zealand's a lovely place. So maybe New Zealand.
as someone from England can relate big time. But yeah, that was the end of bloody Twitter. Well done for coming out of that question without insulting an entire nation. That's good. It's good. They really, Arlo really set you up for a failure there, and you still came out and won. But thank you to everyone who submitted questions. If you want to submit a question, you can always keep an eye out on Twitter for our guest announcements. When I announce one, you can just tweet us, you can email us. All of the details will be in the description, and you can ask a question to one of my wonderful guests, and most likely it'll get read out. So we're flying towards the end of the show, which is sad, but we've got another feature before we go, which is one of my favourites. It's that wonderful corridor. It's the corridor of fame.
Have you ever been limited by who you were before?
One day I shall come back. Yes, I shall come back.
Our lives are different to anybody else's. That's the exciting
Dear Sarah Jane, do I have the right?
Some people's small, beautiful events is what life is all about.
Yes, an anniversary compared to us. 10 million years of absolute power. That's what it takes to be really
Every great decision creates ripples. Like a huge boulder dropped in a lake.
But it was a childish dream that made you a doctor. You dreamt you could
No more.
I'm not just the title. I'm the last of the title. It just disappears, doesn't it? Everything you are gone in a moment, like breath on a mirror.
I do what I do because it's right. Because it's decent. And above all, it's kind.
Love abides in the face of everything.
So, again, for any new listeners who haven't heard before, the Corridor of Fame is a wonderful place where we hang portraits on the wall of the brightest and best of the Doctor Who world, and yet again submitted by my marvellous guests. So it's a place where we can sing the praises of the heroes of Doctor Who, and also sing the praises of some unsung heroes, some people who don't necessarily always get the respect they deserve. There's an assortment of names in here already, but Josh is about to add another one. So please, Josh, hit me with it. Who are you going to put in the Corridor of Fame?
I think if you're someone who has listened to my Missing Episode series, you've heard this name a lot. Graham Strong is my choice.
Great pick. Really, really great pick. I'd say, I assume you'll agree, probably one of the more unsung heroes
for sure.
that I was talking about. I know about Graham Strong through your videos, so I mean, it seems daft having you here, and I explain. So why don't you give us a bit of backstory about Graham Strong and what they've given to us, because it's marvellous what Graham's done.
So Graham was a Doctor Who fan, like all of us, from back in the 1960s when he was watching it as a kid. And he used to hook up his tape recorder, so like audio, just recording audio, straight to the TV to record episodes of Doctor Who. So the reason why we have these high quality soundtracks of Missing Doctor Who is because of Graham. So he started recording really early on, but he used to tape over them. But from the Daleks Master Plan, up until I think the Moon Base, maybe a bit longer actually for him. No, he's longer than that. So but from the Daleks Master Plan onwards, he was recording these directly from it. So we have these really great high quality audios. So because of his work, we get to have these animations, we get to have telesnap reconstructions, because there's a lot of missing, like, lost media out there where we've got nothing. The fact that we have telesnaps, the fact that we have audio recordings, we've got the original scripts. So many other shows have nothing.
Yeah.
But it's down to Doctor Who fans like Graham Strong is the reason why we have these, and we're so lucky, we're so fortunate. And the BBC are still making money off of his hard work all these years later by doing audio releases of animations, and we get to benefit out of it, of Doctor Who fans, and the BBC are benefiting out of it. And yeah, he's an incredible person, and sadly he passed away, I think, in 2019. But I think he knows how loved he is, how important his work really is. When, you know, when he initially offered it to the BBC, they said they weren't interested. But it was people, when he contacted other people, they said, no, you need to listen to this. This is very important. This is important stuff you need to keep. And then the BBC woke up and realized they talked to the right people who understood how important it was, and they archived it. So, you know, this is such an important piece of Doctor Who history. It's such an important piece of missing episode history. And Graham Strong is someone who should be remembered for sure.
100%. A really, really lovely pick. I always love the unsung heroes, and just, you know, the idea that just a fan who, I'm right in saying he would have been like a teenager at the time, who was, you know, rigging these things up. Quite a dangerous rig, I remember hearing in one of your videos, where it's like sort of just sticking wires into the back of telly, making things just completely live, so that they could just electrocute him at any time. So, risking life and limb to just record episodes of Doctor Who, and have that strange foresight, which no one else had at that time, that maybe we should record this. It's really, really, really lovely to respect a fan who has done so much. And like I said, the only reason we've been able to have chats about stories that we've been talking about today is because of someone like Graham. So wonderful pick, wonderful pick. And so it's a legacy that isn't going to go anywhere, because now we've got sort of these, fingers crossed, unless someone goes on a junking binge again, we've got these episodes for good now, and they're not going anywhere. Fingers crossed no one manages to purge every copy of a story. But I'm sure there's a few stories out there that may benefit from it. But it's a great pick, and Graham is now in the corridor of fame, with many other Doctor Who heroes. So welcome, Graham. And that, sadly, brings us to the end of the show. Before we go, I do have one more question, which is a question that I ask to all of my guests before they leave. It's a tough one. I always say, I say in a sentence, but if you can't do it in a sentence, take as much as you need. But in a sentence, what does Doctor Who mean to you?
Oh, God. I was actually thinking about this yesterday, and I was like, I don't think there's been a day in the past 10 years where I haven't thought about Doctor Who. Like, it has infected my mind. Like, every single moment I'm thinking about Doctor Who. If it's not thinking about my YouTube channel, it's just thinking about the show in general. Or I'm talking about it on Twitter. Or I'm seeing one of my friends and we're talking about it. Like, it's such an integral part of my life. And now with my YouTube channel, like, my name is associated with Doctor Who. Like, I will see people talk about me online. I'm like, oh yeah, I exist as a person. And I'm here, and people actually watch what I do, and it's really, really strange. Yeah. So I feel like my identity is now wrapped in with Doctor Who. But I feel like I have a somewhat healthy relationship with it, where I'm happy to make fun of my favorite television show. Whereas I feel like some people will take it very personally if you critique it in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Whereas I think critiquing something you love is very important. And if we don't question the things we love, bad things can happen. And, you know, so yeah, I don't know where that sentence went. I went on a bit of a
No,
journey.
it's
sorry.
fine. I like it. No, I like it. I'm very much that type of fan as well. Where I mean, we've poked fun at quite a few stories tonight, but Horns of Nymon being one of them. But I love them all in their own special way. But yeah, that's a lovely answer, and I'm, like I said, I think very much the same in that Doctor Who is so important to my life, and I do think about it a ridiculous amount. So yeah, I mean, that brings us to the end of the show. Josh Snares, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on.
No, thank you for having me.
It's taken me far too long to get you on the podcast, but finally you've come, and I know that the listeners are going to love it. So this is your time to plug away at whatever you want. So whatever you want to shout about, plug away. Go for it.
The Might of the Daleks is coming out on the 24th of March. So please watch it. It's going to be... I think it's the best thing I've ever been involved with, and I'm supported by such an incredibly talented cast and crew. These are people who are professionals, they know what they're doing. It's not your average Doctor Who fan film where it's just a bunch of people helping out. Like, these are people who really know what they're doing. I felt so supported by these people who just were 10 times more talented than I am, and it was just so great, and I really want you to see their hard work. And I really want you to see Aaron. I really want you to see what Aaron can do. He's such an incredible producer. It was great to just work on this project that I think people are really going to love. And it was such my dream of directing an episode of Doctor Who. I've checked it off my list. I've done it. It feels like I've done it, which is really incredible. So the stuff with the Daleks, you're going to lose it. If you squint, it feels like you're watching the Daleks Master Plan. It feels like it's back. So I think people are really going to respond. I don't even think you need to
squint. You don't need to squint. It looks, from the trailer that I've seen, it looks that good. It looks that good already. So I'm honestly so excited to see it. And where can people find you in terms of socials and stuff like that?
Yeah, on YouTube, just Josh Snares. There's no one with my last name. I'm the only person with Josh Snares on the planet, so I'm not hard to find. I'm on Twitter, unfortunately, because I'm obsessed with it. And I'm also on Instagram, and sadly I'm on Facebook too, but it's just my scheduled posts because I don't really use Facebook. But you gotta do it. I am around. Come find me.
Lovely. Well, I'll put all of the links. I'll put the links to Might of the Daleks trailer and all your socials in the description.
Awesome.
So if somehow you haven't come across Josh's work before, you can now go and find it. If I'm your first exposure to Josh Snares, then something has gone wrong in your life. Just to do my little bit, you've been listening to Who Knew, a Doctor Who podcast. We're available wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on YouTube, where you can get full video versions. So if you're listening on one of the podcast platforms, why not come check over, and you'll catch all the visual gags, of which there are not that many, but still, come and support us on YouTube. Like it, share, subscribe, comment. Your crack teams that you want to go and find missing episodes. Leave us a rating and things like that on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It really, really helps us out. I really want this series to be bigger and better than ever. And I've got some very exciting guests coming up, including on next week's episode, as you're listening to this, James Moran, the writer of Fires of Pompeii and Sleeper from Series 2 of Torchwood, will be joining me to chat about all of those lovely things and seeing what James wants to put in the DVD collection in the corridors. So very, very exciting. You can find us on Twitter at whoknewdwpod. You can email us at whoknewdwpod@gmail.com. I've not done this in a while. And you can find us on Instagram at whoknewdwpod and at Who Knew Podcast on TikTok as well. I need to get back on that. I can only juggle so many social medias at a time. Instagram started ramping back up again, and now I've abandoned TikTok. I'm going to try and juggle them. so that there's a steady stream of fun and announcements and stuff like that. And you can support us on Patreon for as little as £1 a month. You can get early access to pods, and you can support us, help me keep the mic on, and help me keep finding all of these wonderful guests, because, you know, they don't come cheap. I've had to pay Josh a lot of money to be here today.
$1 more billion.
Yes, exactly. And that the Patreon has paid for that. So if you want more guests like Josh, because I definitely get $1 billion from my Patreon, 100%. Yes, a week, definitely. But yeah, for as little as £1 a month, I know times are tough, so there's no obligation. But if you want to help us out, you can. And you can even get a little discount on a Who Knew t-shirt if you want, because we've got a bit of merch. But other than that, I think that's it. So, Josh, again, it's been a pleasure having you on. I'd love to have you on again in the future, and I cannot wait to see Might of the Daleks.
Oh, thank you so much. No, I'm so happy I got to plug Might of the Daleks, and I had a really good time, so thank you.
Good. I'm glad. And thank you all for listening. I'll see you next time with James Moran.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Who Knew, a Doctor Who podcast, is brought to you by the Who Knew Patreon. Massive thank you to our patrons, and a special thank you to Cal King. Thanks for listening to Who Knew, a Doctor Who podcast. You can find us wherever you get your pods, as well as full video versions on YouTube. Please subscribe, like, share, leave us a review wherever you can, because it really helps us out. And a massive thank you to the Sononauts for lending us their cover of the Doctor Who theme tune to be the theme for the podcast.